So it's Derby weekend and Liverpool are playing Everton, obviously, on Saturday evening. And joining me for a quick chat is Paul Moran. Thanks, Paul, for joining me.
Hi, Gav, you okay?
All right, lad. So it's the Derby. It's a big one. I don't know how you see the Derby or whether you see it like most lads who live in Liverpool see the Derby as bigger than the United game. I don't know. How do you see the Derby these days?
Oh, it's always has been, and for me always will be, the game. When the fixtures come out, the old cliche, that's the two games I look for when we play Everton. They say about United and that, but I think it's a lot of, if you like, fans, it's phrased this properly, it's fans who haven't been following Liverpool for as long, have more rivalry with United than I think. Again, I'm tempted to not use the phrase, but say local people.
Right.
Because we're in and amongst the Evertonians here, so it's
yeah.
quite important we beat them. Yeah. Whereas, again, no criticism. If you're not in Liverpool, it's not quite the same thing, because I think you'll find where a lot of the fans are who follow us, they're in areas where there's more United fans than there would be Everton fans, rather than actually in the Merseyside area where it's probably quite even though they don't think it is, like, as we all are from Norway, as you know.
Well, I think you've got to be of a certain vintage to remember that rivalry. I certainly remember it because I'm like in my 40s. You'll remember what it was like in the 80s. We were the best two teams in the league. Man United weren't anywhere at that stage. So we remember that. And then we've got we had a good relationship with the Blues back then. It was friendly rivalry. The relationship's changed a little bit, I think, in past years. It's become a little bit more fraught. And personally, I mean, I'd like to get back to that relationship we had with them in the 80s. You know what I mean? Where we took, they were brilliant over Hillsborough. They looked, they were in our corner, weren't they? How do you see that relationship?
Well, I can remember going to derbies at Goodison in the late 70s and early 80s, and you couldn't really stand there shouting, "Come on, Liverpool," and expect us to stand there, because we used to have tickets in the main stand. So we were up at the park end, but in the middle tier of the main stand at Goodison. And there's been, there was a few games there where there's absolute mayhem going on around. Right, it's not necessarily caused by us. But you're in the comps. We had a pretty good record around that time. And if you jump up celebrating a goal, it's like jumping up at any away game. There's people turning around telling you to sit down and go away and things like that. And it's like we've had, I wouldn't say it wasn't one where you'd have constant trouble, but if you were a divvy at Everton, you could certainly start a fight.
Yeah.
If you want, well, that's like any ground. I appreciate that, but when you're saying it's Everton and everyone's has this image of people walking the game, linking arms and coming out saying, "Oh, bad luck there, oh, you're unlucky," and all that.
Yeah.
But, the 70s, 80s, where I think a lot of it now, again, which we talk about a lot on these podcasts, it's the social media.
Yeah.
There's some idiotic things written on there. There's some. And one of the things that you say it annoys you, which is not the right phrase, but one of the things that gets on my nerves as much as anything is when our Liverpool Twitter page says something and it's taken by the Everton fans as gospel that is considered opinion of every Liverpool fan in the country. And it's, they're a strange breed and the cult and all that. And you say, well, we're living over the road from you and next door to you. And I know a lot of Evertonians do the non-league football and Sunday football. You just talk to them, and then even some of them, they'll put stuff on Twitter. I really don't put much, if anything, on Twitter about Everton, because I just found over the time it's not worth it. Because about 18 months ago, they were talking about the new ground, and I put on. Someone asked me about the ground, what do you think of it? And I said, "Oh, brilliant! I'm one. I ground hopping, going to grounds.
Yeah,
I just put on Twitter. It'll be great to go to Everton's new ground." And then I just put, although I think by the time you go, you won't have to worry about parking there because we'll all be able to transport there like Star Trek. Honest to God, mate, there's some of the abuse I got about that.
No way.
There's people saying. No, there's people telling me my dad would be disgusted with my attitude. That's wrong, and that's a terrible thing to say. I said, it's like a joke, you know what I mean? It's not.
Get over yourself.
You can say a lot worse than that. I mean, it's like saying, again, I'm literally not going into any detail about this, but some of the tweets I saw not long after my dad had died, if I thought all Evertonians were like that, then you never speak to any of them again. But it's just individuals doing it, and that's a lot of this social media.
Society, isn't it? It's society. They group you. The amount of times where I've heard Liverpool fans are this. Do you know what I mean? Liverpool fans are murderers for a start. Well, I was 6 years old or something when we went and played. No, 9 years old when we played in ISIL. So I'm not. Yeah. I wasn't there. So why am I? Why is there a thing?
This is it. It's and the other one. Someone did it the other day. Someone put something on. There was a picture of the wheel in Liverpool, which has been took down now. And someone put on, they must have thought it was a hubcap. I said, how old? And the fellow who did it, because I looked at his profile, he was in his 30s by the look of him. It was hard to tell. He felt like saying to him, is that the best you can come up with? Like, is that literally it? Like, apart from the fact I've seen about 3 cars with hubcaps in the last 10 years.
Yeah.
Apart from that, but it's just, and it's like this, racist abuse and that, and it's a big broad cover to it. But you can say what you want about people from your own country, but you can't say people say anything about anyone else. And everyone's up in uproar. But if someone says, "Oh, Scousers," who's the Scouser in the suit? What do you call that? Oh, he's the defendant.
Yeah.
That's what. If you could make another analogy with some other country and people from another country. Oh, you can't say that. That's racist. The Mexicans are all wearing sombreros or something like. That's racist. Well, that's what you're doing. Oh, it doesn't count because you're from Liverpool. That's fair enough.
Yeah, of course, I get you. Well, just moving on to the game.
I don't know, we got on to Mexicans there, so I don't know.
It's all right. I'll funnel you back, lads. It's all right. We've got you back now.
Where am I?
So, Everton, Everton have done well this season. They're 7th at the moment. They've got 37 points. They're only 3 points behind us with a game in hand. The last 2 games they've lost, so form's dipped a little bit, but just before that they had that amazing game against Spurs in the FA Cup, and they also drew with Man United the game before in a 3-3 game. So their form at times has been fantastic, and then obviously new manager coming in, he's trying to get to grips with the players. How have you seen Everton play this season? Have what have you thought about, how they've played and, especially the new signings that they've brought in? Is there any that stand out?
Well, I watch them, you watch people on the telly. I don't religiously watch Everton every game they're on. But I remember watching them when he played West Brom early in the season at home, and they look really good. They were moving well, passing the ball around, and they looked dangerous every time they got the ball, especially Calvert-Lewin and Alisson. I think was playing in that game. Calvert-Lewin certainly was. But I think if he played to the strengths, but again, you can say, to talk about social media there, a lot of the comments I see from actual Everton fans, a lot of them have been moaning recently about their slow build-up in games and sideways and backward passing. I said, well, that's similar to what we're doing in a way. Yeah. It's our build-up's gone slower than it was, if you like, if that's the phrase you could use. We just seem to be taking a long time, and I think a lot of Everton's problems, if that's the right word, is coming from the slow build-up play. When the 2 forwards, certainly they want the ball, you would think, played into space and
of course
whipped into the box early. Certainly Calvert-Lewin's been the star man for them this year. I don't know if he's playing on tomorrow. I don't know if he's injured.
Well, just getting on to the injury news. I mean, I had a little look, and obviously hasn't done his pre-match press conference, and neither has Jurgen, but Mina looks like he's definitely out, which will probably mean that Ben Godfrey will partner Keane. He looks a good prospect, that Ben Godfrey. He came on.
He gets a lot of mentions. He
came on against us in the derby at Goodison and looked good, and he handled Sadio Mane quite well, I think, at right back. But the news looks like Calvert-Lewin and Alan will be back, and I think that Alan's a really good player. We've come up against him a few times, haven't we? When he's played for Napoli. How do you see his form?
Well, I think you probably get told off for saying this in a way, but he seems to be like a similar player to Thiago in a way, but possibly a better tackler. Because I think the one thing, we watched Thiago a lot playing for Bayern Munich and that, and I can't remember him tackling like he does now.
He's more of an interceptor.
But he's going to ground all the time. Yeah. He is fouling people. There's no 2 ways around it.
Would you think that's something to do with the fact that he's finding it quite tough? He's finding the game.
Well, the coincidence being he plays against the German team on Tuesday night, and he's running around and enjoying himself.
Yeah, yeah.
Now, he did do that dopey tackle after about 18 seconds, but when he tried to reach around for the ball. But Alan, he's a decent player. I mean, I like watching him at Napoli. You know, I've grown past that thing now where, you know, years ago, when I was 59, 3 weeks ago, you like to think you've reached the point where it's just like, because they play for Everton doesn't mean the shit. You know what I mean? It's like, that's what it used to be years ago. It was never true then.
Yeah. But
you just say, well, he's rubbish, he's crap. And you look at them now, they're not. They're clearly not.
Yeah.
You know, they're all decent players. I mean, you're going to be playing in the Premiership if you're not a decent player. You know, you're going to be playing for a club like Everton if you're not a decent player. So any player they've got playing for them is potentially a danger tomorrow. But again, looking at it like you used to look at it years ago, if our 11 players play to the best of their ability, it's like we should beat Everton. Yeah. But then again, we should beat Burnley and we should beat Brighton.
Yeah.
Which has clearly gone wrong in the last few home games. And then, all right, City's a different kettle of fish because they're the best team in it. And it's just like we had such a run last season, we didn't give them a chance. Because I think if it had been a different prospect last season, but because winning all the games we did, we just literally never gave them a chance to get anywhere near us. And that's where I think they thrive, when they've got something to go for. And at the moment, like, you can't see them not winning the league now.
I think we're finding it now. It's quite disheartening to chase that. You're looking at the result every week and you're, they've won a game. You know, that you're going to take that into games if you're a player, I would have thought.
Well, you know, it's like you've got to have, you're looking at where they'll lose points and you can't see them losing points, really. Yeah. You know, even if you say to play an Arsenal away, so, well, you know, it's like with Liverpool's games, you look for, you know, when you're looking at games, you think, well, this will be a good win if we win here. You talk at Arsenal away, no matter what the team's playing like. You know, Arsenal, I don't think they're struggling particularly anyway, but you talk about the games you look at the start of the season, you don't want to see the last 3 away games being Arsenal, Chelsea, Tottenham, for example, or, you know, Everton. We never play Everton at the end of the season. We always play them generally in October and January, February. That's what it seems to have been for the last 20, 30 years. We've never really played Everton late on for a long time. I don't think that's deliberate, but I still think the fixtures are, I don't think they're random by any stretch of the imagination.
Let me pick you up on something you said there. You've just reminded me of something. I remember listening to a podcast with Graham Souness, and he said, your dad and Joe Fagan used to always get into you and go, look, if you lot are at it today, you're better than these. So all you have to make sure you do is that you are at it. Don't go out there with a poor attitude. Go out there with the right attitude. And if that's the case, we're going to win. Is that something you remember your dad telling you back in the day?
Well, he used to say to him, you know, before games, I always remember saying to him, make sure they get stuck in tomorrow. I know, like, no one else had thought of it, like, but you used to think your little part to help, and you tell so-and-so to give him a kick if he can, or we used to know see some of the players then at reserve games, and you used to say things to them off the record. You know, if you're playing Saturday, give him a crack, like. The funniest one we did, the fella used to play for, he played for Everton actually, Gary Megson, years ago. And Dave Watson was an apprentice professional at Liverpool. And he played in the reserves, and they were playing, I can't remember who Gary Megson was playing for at the time, but he was playing on his way back from Innsbruck. Whether it was, I'm trying to think, it might have been West Brom. But the reserves were playing at Anfield, and before the game, said to Dave Watson, I hate that Gary Megson, give him a crack if you can. And after about 2 minutes, Dave Watson tackled him. I was sitting there just like, shit. I don't know what we say to him. When he come off at our time, we give a little thumbs up and a wink and that. Like a Sunday League game, you know, I don't like him. Give him a crack if you can. And he did it after about 2 minutes. There's other little stories you hear, but
the thing that, I mean, whenever I've listened to players talk about, you know, your dad and the boot room and all that, we're getting way off target here, by the way. We're supposed to be talking about the simplicity of the message. So another one that sticks in my mind is either your dad or Joe Fagan going up to Souness and going, "You'll have a look at it today, son, won't you?" And that was it. And what that meant was you just sit back and just make sure that at the early stages of the game, nothing's different, and
everyone's at it. Well, everyone's at it. You make sure.
And just don't go too adventurous. Just sit back and just, you know what I mean? And It's that simplicity of
But
message.
you know yourself, Gav. If you, I mean, again, it's a long time since I've played footy, but you know yourself. If you started off a game and your first touch is awful, it takes you a few minutes to get yourself sorted up, because then you're thinking, oh Christ,
it's one of them games,
you know,
isn't it?
I've just tripped over the ball, or I've stood on it.
Yeah.
You think, fucking hell, I'm not going to be doing this for 90 minutes. But then the next time the ball comes to you, that's in your mind.
Yeah.
It's not like I'll have a little touch here and roll it 10 yards to someone.
Yeah.
So that's what it is from the off. Make sure you're at it from the start, because if you start wrong, it's very difficult to change back. And if that's the whole team, you know, you could have the whole team attitude being wrong. Just quickly, the minute it's about that story. When we did that famous draw with Palace, the 3-3, when we were 3-0 up and we drew 3-3, as it turned out, the next night was the players' presentation night in the arena in town. And we went. My dad went. My dad got a Lifetime Achievement Award. My mum went. But the three of us went. I was looking after them, if you like. So the club invited me along as well. We were sitting on the table with Kenny Dalglish, and there was other people there. But Brendan Rodgers come over and talked to me dad, because he'd seen me dad from Melwood, walking around Melwood, so he knew who my dad was. So he come over and he said, "What do you think of last night?" And he looked at me, so I thought, well, I'm not just gonna, look at my feet. No, I said, "How do we get caught on a breakaway when we're 3-1 up in a game we have to win?" And they scored their second goal on a breakaway. And he said, to be honest with you, he said, we're all on the bench shouting them. Their heads had gone. They'd just gone.
Right.
After Palace had scored the first goal, the thought was we need to score again, which they didn't.
The thing before the game, if anyone doesn't remember, was we had to score 5 or 6, wasn't it?
Yeah, to go above someone, didn't we? Yeah.
Freight train, didn't we?
But we had to win the game, was the most important.
That was the most important. But the backstory was we needed 6 goals or something stupid.
Well, this is it. And then he said, as it went to 3-1, you could see everyone like, "Oh, come on, we need to get on." No, we don't. Because it was a breakaway. We got caught on a breakaway when you're 3-1 up. That can't happen.
It shouldn't happen.
That can't happen at any level of football. You just manage the game, as they say. Yeah, exactly. 3 points is more important than the 6 goals.
And that's where you need them big characters, the older heads, to say, "Hey, calm down, everyone."
But Brendan Rodgers' comment was the whole 11 of them had gone.
Right.
They'd just gone in that moment.
Yeah.
There was nothing you could do to stop it, because, as he said, we're not sitting on the bench go, "Oh, I'm glad we're all attacking here." You know what I mean? He's there trying to stop them. And as people say, well, do you shout from the bench? It's hard to stop it when it's happening on the pitch. Yeah. I go to lots of Sunday League games. You can see fellas on the line trying to tell people stuff when there's 50 people there. And if you've gone, you've gone. It doesn't matter that there's one person shouting, or 500 people. If your head's gone, you're that type of person who can't get it back. So if you say you'd have Sooners there, I mean, funnily enough, there's pictures of him on the Facebook the other day. Emily News, Liverpool legend, played 600 games, whatever it was. But it used to get said behind the scenes, if we were getting beat 1-0, he was running around all over the place trying to save the day. And he's not doing his job.
Yeah.
There's just one thing I always remember. It wasn't my dad that said it, actually. It was after the game. They would talk about it. It was after the reserve game when we got beat on the Saturday. And I was in the dressing room. And they were talking about it. And someone said, well, Emlyn, when we're getting beat, in some circumstances, he just goes off trying to rescue the game, which isn't a bad thing.
Yeah.
And occasionally he did rescue the game, if you know what I mean. But he went out of position. And those stuck in my mind. If a player like Emily News can be talked of in that term.
Yeah.
It's everyone, it's like going bombing forwards when you're 1-1. Yeah. It's not, you've got to work it out, but it's easier said than done as well when it's in the heat of the game.
Dragging us back to the derby. Talking about starting, I mean, let's have a little look. We've just played Leipzig and we won 2-0. My overwhelming feeling was relief after the game, but I thought we played well. I thought we started really well in the game, and they were right at it as well, but we were right at it. What did you think?
Well, I thought one of the advantages we had was they weren't open in that sense of the word, but they were certainly more attacking than the teams we've been playing recently,
weren't they?
Certainly at home.
The amount of space, wasn't it?
This is it. So we got the space, but we started well. The passing was crisp at the start. Everyone was pinging it round. But I've not done it myself, but I'm sure if you go back and watch even the Burnley game at home, there's spells in that game where we're pinging it round and everyone's moving.
Yeah.
But we just never got the breakthrough. And then even if you look on Tuesday night, the breakthroughs, the goals come from
mistakes,
a through ball from them,
in
effect, and the fella trying to do a bit of kung fu, but he didn't really
I'd
need
like to think that we forced those over the pitch.
Yeah, we've caused
by making them nervous, by making them make mistakes.
But it's in the second half. We seem to be scoring a lot of goals in the second half.
Yeah.
0-0's the upcoming scoreline at half time all the time. It's always 0-0 at half time.
Yeah.
But I think if we get a couple of goals, hopefully Christ, in any game, but tomorrow especially, you get one up, make them run round.
Yeah, of course.
Because I think we can
do that.
We're passing it around in games like the 2-up when it's 0-0.
Yeah.
And then we're letting a fucking daft goal in like Burnley. It was a penalty, not saying that. But the situation comes from a dopey ball someone played and he ends up getting to play through and the goalie comes flying out.
Yeah.
When he possibly doesn't have to. I mean, there's stories he's not playing tomorrow. Alisson's not playing tomorrow.
The press conference is in about 10 minutes from when we're thinking. I'm going to do a little summary of that later. But looking at it, Fabinho and Alisson haven't trained for the last couple of days. We've got Keita back. So, I mean, there's no word about Alisson. And there was certainly nothing after the Leipzig game because he had a great game.
He didn't appear to be injured.
Your other problem is Kelleher's out as well.
Oh, is he?
Yeah, he's not trained. I don't know what's going on with him, but I know he wasn't there. So I watched the training video this morning and it was...
Well, Adrian put a thing on Twitter, didn't he? More or less, I'm looking forward to the derby. He put a thing on yesterday on his own Twitter feed.
So, right, okay, so that's interesting, isn't it?
Whether he's been told that, I don't know.
Yeah.
Again, you'd look at it another way. You think, well, if we play to our capabilities, and there's, again, no criticism of Everton, for most of the teams in the top division, if we play to our capabilities, it doesn't matter who we've got in goal. It shouldn't matter who's in goal as long as they've got a certain level of competence. I mean, Adrian made them couple of high-level mistakes, which he's been crucified for, which were no worse, if not nothing like the ones Alisson's been doing lately. Because he can't justify that second goal against City, the second mistake. Not when he's just done it once. Because he nearly fell over the ball in the day, managed to retrieve it, then did a bad pass.
He actually made three mistakes back to back, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. He made, and then on Tuesday...
with one.
Well, the goal still come from it. But he did. See, this is one of them arguments I saw about you the week, I think, when people say it could have been, because someone said would have still been 2-1. I said, well, it wouldn't, because the game wouldn't have been the same from the goal. The Leicester one, it was, someone said after, well, if the first goal hadn't been given, it would have been 2-1. I said, well, it wouldn't, because that incident wouldn't have happened, because we wouldn't have kicked off. And you can't explain it to people, and like, how do you mean? I said, well, if they hadn't scored, that goal would have been offside, as it certainly looked like it was.
Yeah.
Then we'd have took a free kick in our box, not the kickoff.
Yeah.
So everything else that happened then wouldn't have happened.
Wouldn't have happened.
Yes, it would.
No, it wouldn't. It wouldn't. You can't go back. What did you make of Kabak's performance?
I think he's settled in quite well, considering. I know he's only 20. He's not trying to do anything fancy, which is what you want. I certainly wouldn't apportion any blame for Vardy's goal on him, because there's no reason.
Should shout for a start. He hasn't shouted.
To be honest, Gal, Alisson shouldn't be anywhere. Alisson shouldn't be within 30 yards of him, because he's dealing with that ball. If he miscontrols it, he can run back and whack it out of play. Yeah. If he misses it completely, it'll go through. The one thing you don't want to happen there, because my missus was sitting in the room with us when it was on, and as the ball was going through, she said, "You said shit about 6 times then before anything happened." Because it was like a bleeding steam train coming towards you, saying, like, my God. We go, oh, shit. Because you could just say.
You could see,
and it's not Kabak's fault, because there's no reason for him to wonder where the goalie is when he's 20 yards outside our area.
Yeah.
Because the thing was, if he'd have got there first and side-footed it, he'd have side-footed it into the empty net.
Yeah.
Alisson's not there. It's a one-off mistake, if you like, but on Tuesday, we made it, me and my son, David, we looked and before the game, he said, see how Alisson plays first 5 minutes? If he looked, first 5 minutes, it was one touch and away. He was doing that all the time, even if there was shorter passes on. He wasn't giving it to the two centre-halves. If he could play to the full-backs, he was. But when it was coming to him, it was one touch, and then he was zooming it away.
It makes sense. You don't want to be putting Kabak into under any pressure, do you? He's just come in, a young lad. So that makes total sense. They must have had a word with him, surely.
Yeah, but then he did start fannying then, because after about half an hour, one come back to him and he had like 5 touches and then under hit it to someone. They just kicked the... I can hear me dad kick the fucking thing, under his breath. Just kick it. If you kick it out of play, because there was one in the second half, he kicked out of play. And the commentator went, oh, another mistake from Alisson's kicking there. I said, the ball's in the 20th row of the stand. So it's not behind him or in someone's face. If you're going to kick, it's not a mistake. If it goes out of play, it's not a mistake, because they're not going to score immediately from what you've done. Whereas if you do what you do against Leicester, then we end up being 2-1 down and in this shit.
Of course. So what do you think on Saturday? What's your score prediction? Any ideas what you...
Well,
how do you think the game will go? Do you think they'll set up defensively and wait for us to come at them?
Well, I mean, you look at Carlo Ancelotti, you think, well, if anyone knows how to set up against us, it's him, because he's done it in the past with his other teams he's played. But it's been different games, obviously. There's been European games. I can't see Everton coming at us early. I can see the game changing on the goal. If we go 1 up, then I think they could well. I mean, it depends who plays for them. Is Rodriguez fit to play? Has he been playing recently? He's the danger man if you give him time. If you don't give him time, then he's not picking his plan. And then all this last week, it's all been about him leaving. It's been all over the place. So whether that's been leaked by someone there, I don't know. Because there certainly seems to be someone leaking stuff at our training ground.
Right.
I'd love to know who it is, but someone's definitely leaking stuff.
The yellow bibs thing, yeah?
Yeah, someone's doing something there. There's something that never used to happen at Melwood.
Of course. But I mean, if Allen's back, that'll strengthen their midfield, and that'll be a battle in there. I'd like to think. Look, talking about what we talked about before, I'd like to think they've got to cope with us rather than we've got to cope with them. Yeah.
So let us get them turning and put pressure on. How do you pronounce it? I've always pronounced it as Godfrey, the centre half, is it not?
Yeah, yeah. What did I say?
You were saying Hodfrey before.
Godfrey. Oh, was I? I thought to say Godfrey.
No, you didn't. Because the only reason I've noticed is because you definitely didn't say that.
Well, I went to Merchant Taylors, I'm very posh,
Yeah, St. Mary's, you're not too far behind. Never used to sleep there. That was it. Well, I did actually, to be fair. That was Jordan Lessons. That was a different story. Now, you get it there, players as best you can. I mean, Everton have had players over the years. You're talking, if you go back to the 80s, like we were talking before, they got Ratcliffe and Mountfield. Now, they won the league with them too. But there's other games with Ian Rush, people pushing forward, made them two look like they'd never seen each other before.
Of course.
Now, they're brilliant players. They won the league twice with Everton, 85, 87. So it's not a criticism. It's like our centre halves, Alan Hansen, Phil Thompson. I was watching a match on YouTube last night, Villa from 1980. And there's times there, Peter With, and it was Des Bremner who was playing. They were all over us. Villa were absolutely ripping us apart. This is from 1980. Wow. And this is when you go, think about that era, you think, well, we always used to win then.
Well, you do, you assume, don't you? Yeah.
Yeah. And, know, if you watch that era, Alan Kennedy's playing and zooming the ball from left to right. Terry Mack missed 3 or 4 decent chances, unlucky on a couple of them. And you're looking at that and you think, well, it happens to all players. You've got to make the good players make mistakes.
Yeah.
And that's what's annoying with Alisson last week, is that was really, it was unforced.
It was, yeah.
It's not something, he wasn't under pressure. He put himself under pressure.
Completely, yeah.
And then, but if you're going to do it against the team, you don't do it against like City with them ones like, up front, Sterling and Foden and that, because they just punished us.
Of course, yeah.
But I mean, he beat us 4-1 last year at their place as well, but no one was bothered about that because it was just after we'd won the league. Because they go down to Chelsea when you think they're not going to get beat here and then get beat.
Yeah.
So, and this season's not a one-off. Every season's a one-off because, you know, that's by the very nature of it. But there's certainly differences with the fans and how the players are preparing for games even. Because, you know, they're all in these... But I mean, you might be able to explain this. I couldn't explain it. Someone asked me this the other day and I hadn't thought of it. We couldn't go and play in Germany because you're not allowed to go into Germany to play a game. So how can RB Leipzig leave Germany to Hungary and then go back to Germany?
Doesn't make any sense.
How did that work? And like Spain's obviously the same because Man United are playing Sociedad in Turin last night.
It is what it is. It doesn't make any sense. It's them not wanting people to come in rather than people to go out. You know what I mean?
I know, but they've gone out to Hungary and come back.
Yeah, no, yeah.
Who've they been in contact? Have they been in contact with the people?
People from the UK, which is the worst.
Who can't go there?
Yeah.
I know we've gone off the subject again, but it doesn't make sense.
We're
trying to work out because someone said to me, "How can they go back to Germany from Hungary?" And to be honest with you, I'm not sure because they've been mixing referees from Slovenia, so they're obviously all right as well. It doesn't make any sense. No, but you know, go back to the derby. You said this every time we've been on with you. If we play to our best, we've certainly got a chance.
Yeah. Give me a score prediction.
I'm thinking of 2-0 again, but I said that when we played Newcastle and it was 0-0. I think if we get, saying 2-0 and then saying if we get the first goal, if we score in the first half, it could end up being the famous 3-1, which, you know, it was in the derby. It used to be 3-1 quite a lot at one stage, which was usually we scored first, Everton equalised, then we get 2.
Yeah. So
whether that happens or not tomorrow, certainly I don't want them to equalise type of thing. But if you're saying, you know, just to be right, it was funny on Tuesday night, I was doing my soccer sticks and I had 3 running right and Cardiff were winning 2-0 at Luton and I'd done 2-1 and I'd done us to win 2-1 at Leipzig. So when that fella went through at the end and he missed, I was like, I didn't want it to be 2-1, not that much. If we'd have won the first leg 3-0, it'd have been 2-1. I'd have been having a go at him like, but you want them to score, make it, because it goes from
it'd been nervy then, wouldn't it?
To, you know, not 1-0, like, but it goes from 3-0 to 2-0 then just with a last minute goal from them. So, but my missus was laughing because when it missed, I went, fucking hell, do you know what's up? I said, I've got 2-1. And she went, oh, it would have been 2-1 then. I said, oh, but I didn't want it to be 2-1. Once it was 2-0 with 5 minutes to go, I didn't want it to be 2-1, obviously. Like, but,
Brilliant.
Been caught on them in the past when I've wanted other teams to score, and they have against us. Never had us to draw or anything, but
you ever do the combo bet where you bet against Liverpool so that you've got a cushion?
Won't do that. I don't like us being on it. It's that Soccer 6 thing. So they pick the 6 games.
Yeah.
So if we're on it, you've got to do it. But the worst we've done this season, I think, was a 1-1, according to me. But I'd never put us to lose.
Right.
I wouldn't put us to lose. No matter who was against or what was happening, I'd never put it. I know what you mean. It's to put a bet on Everton. So if they win, you've got
a little compensation.
No, it wouldn't.
No, I get that. Well, listen, thanks very much for your time, mate.
Yeah, sorry we never really talked about the derby.
I enjoyed it anyway.
Do another one later. So, hang on. Turn the thing off now and go, hang on, we never mentioned that once in the old game. There's something about 1985.
Just for people watching this, we have got a game on Saturday evening against Everton.
Yeah, 5:30 kickoff.
Right, listen, mate, thanks very much. And if you're watching this on YouTube, give us a like of the video and subscribe. But thanks very much, Paul. I'll see you soon, mate.
No, I enjoyed it. Thanks, Gav. See you later. Cheers, mate.